Hey, the rulers, Zemo73 here, bringing you a showdown between the Hyde and the shadow clone of Hyde. We have Daltin and Paul showing off their different Hyde lists in today's feature match. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for product, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists.
As well as our guest lecturer members, Vite Ramen, King Pearlshine, and Mognite.
Class is in session.
So we're getting into it here. Paul is on the left playing Darkness Moonchild plus X. Hyde, very heavy, like as much of the ninja support cards as kind of possible with a few tech ideas. And then Dalton on the right is playing a little bit more creative in terms of some of the addition tech cards and kind of leaning in a little bit more of a white, green package a little bit there. And as you see with his moon children, he's using the mysterious moon so that he also can like recover twice and get in for a second attack. So we'll have to see exactly how that kind of plays out between these two decks. We're going to see a lot. The Hyde decks specialize in pocket spot removal. That is kind of the whole kind of idea of the deck, is being able to, in a lot of different ways, just kill anything that hits the board. So it'll be very interesting to see which of these two can kind of stick a board and establish it, to see whether or not, you know, they can kind of pull off the ideas that are present within the deck list, or whether or not, and right off the bat here, after draws before, after mulligans, we're gonna go ahead and see some very quick usage of the Black Cat God's Art, kind of almost immediately. It seems like both of them are going to be using this very quickly to just get a card into their EX area. Oh, just looks like just Dalton does here, right here at the beginning. Essentially, because Hyde can play cards from the EX area even if they're not ninjutsus, this is kind of lets Hyde see the top 15 cards of their deck in opener if they want to just like hard mulligan for something, which is very, very interesting. We're going to see Paul go ahead and at the end of Dalton's turn coin to put a card face down using Hyde's ability, and then also use his Black Cat God's Art to set up for 2 cards face down going into his first turn. Yeah, that's very interesting. Remember at the start they both have only 3 slots for these EX zones, so that's important to note. Paul here looking like probably just going to pass the turn. It is going to be a little bit of, if you've ever, those of you who are kind of familiar with the old Lapis Cluster Mikage rulers, there's something, a part of me as I think about this matchup that feels like it's going to be a lot of callstone pass or like callstone setup, and then just both people just constantly killing each other's things, so nothing gets to stick until someone eventually pushes through for lethal, which I think might favor Dalton a little bit, especially since he has the ability to recover a Resonator or J Ruler to be able to attack twice. So that'll be an interesting point to kind of see which plays out. We do see a pass from Dalton. Paul deciding to take advantage of the situation and go ahead and play a card face down. There's a piece of me that says, at what point in time do you just start casting Rusty's Fox just to kind of cycle a little bit and kind of burn out resources and put some threats on board? Neither player having Ega yet is certainly very unfortunate for both of them, not being able to do quick cast. That certainly helps. We're going to see a Glowing Spider come in here, which when it resolves, it's going to let Paul draw 3 cards, so have a really full hand. We are going to see, looks like a filter out of Dalton for Lorite, which makes a lot of sense. So he does still have a 10-10 spider on field, which is nothing to shake a stick at. He just doesn't get to draw 3 cards, which is kind of fine because those cards that are face down are still cards that he can use or flip face up, which is kind of the main benefit of them, just similarly to the old stealth mechanic. Like, you were putting cards face down and they weren't in your hand anymore to be discarded, but they were still ultimately cards that you could use. So it looks like we're going to see a pass there. Before recovery, we're going to see a Garion come down to go ahead and kill the spider. Might as well make use of that will before recovery just to get rid of something. And again, this is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of both decks are probably going to have a lot of spot removal, and so survivability of things is going to be a big question of can things survive long enough to be able to try to deal damage, or is the other person just going to kill it fast enough? Down comes a Trishula here on the side of Dalton. Not what I was expecting here. We are going to see a Lorite on the side of Paul to at least stop, attempt to stop the Trishula getting a stone. We are going to see a Fair spell come down from Dalton to be able to win through that stone, that exchange, canceling the Lorite. We get a free stone off of the Trishula, 4C1, and we can play through some more, take some more game actions. Keep in mind that ninjas do still, have a lot of abilities that flip them face up. Now we have Iga coming in here to be able to cast him. There's that Rusty's Fox, like I said before. This is going to get her to draw one card and put a card face down, which is great. And then the Iga is probably also going to end up face down as well. At the end of the turn, we're going to see that Iga shift back to the EX zone as well when it goes face down. We are going to swing in for 1 damage, try to take advantage, and clearly we don't have a Rusty's Fox on the side of Paul, or I feel like that would have come down here to at least kill the Rusty's Fox or something. And then Iga goes face down, can't be used again, and so we move into the Paul's turn. Paul is going to go ahead and he did have a Rusty's Fox. So Rusty's Fox is going to flip face up to be able to shoot Dalton's Rusty Fox for 900 damage just to keep it off board. Totally fine here. The Trishula does kind of serve to an advantage of Dalton. If he can get to that state where he has Eternal for everything, that's certainly going to make the match a lot harder for Paul, because again, all the spot removal is stat based, unless he's running R tracker to be able to give the board -6, -6 to get them below the 3000 from Trishula, but it's a question of whether or not that's being used. We are seeing a Magic Stone Research Institute getting cast from Paul, so he said, look, I see your ramp card, I'll raise you a recycle and buff card, which certainly does make things a lot better for him against his opponent, against Dalton's Foxes if he flips them face up, because if his stuff has more stats, it's harder to kill because it just has more life on it, and so Rusty's Fox isn't going to be able to shoot for the needed amount of damage to make any kind of real impact. We do see a Flute come down here. This is pretty good as well, being in the fact that it has barrier, so it's very hard for Dalton to be able to remove that. And it is buffed up by the stones because of Research Institute as well. Wondering when we're finally going to start to see casts of cards from the EX area. Keep in mind that for Rusty's Fox, it does have quick cast regardless, and it still only costs 1 regardless, so it's very easy to flip up kind of as a end of turn kind of thing for your opponent's turn to be able to move into having pressure on your turn. Rusty's Fox has nothing to shoot, so he was just going to cast it, which makes a lot of sense, get a card into the zone. I imagine we might see Paul's Fox get cast here based on what Dalton goes for. Magic Zone Research Institute on the side of Paul. Yeah, that Rusty's definitely going to get cast, hopefully to put something face down to be able to kill Dalton's Fox before it gets buffed. Oh, nope, it is just going to happen. Hitting another Autoraktia's Memoria for Dalton there, so it looks like only 2 buffs at this point. +4/+4 is not bad, but it's certainly less than he wanted. And we do know what one of those 2 face downs is from Dalton. It is the Iga. Now he could tap out and try to cast it if he wants to, or it is getting, sorry, he's getting 3 buffs. He has 3 stones. We could certainly see an Iga get cast here. I wouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, there's, like I said, there's the Iga coming down. Might as well just use that will for something else, and also the advantage of now all of his ninjas are going to have quick cast, ninjas and ninjutsus, which is really nice. Swinging in with the Lorite for a good old 600 damage. We are going to see that Rusty's Fox finally get cast here on the side of Paul, which is going to help him cycle and very easily be able to block and kill that Lorite if he needs to. It is also a point of if he draws and puts another Rusty's Fox face down, we could see that get flipped, and then that could kill the Lorite. That's another option as well. Or a Rusty. Also would be an option, but no, we're just going to see the Rusty's Fox go to block it, which is going to be enough to be able to... Oh, maybe not. We might have some kind of response. Double checking for stats. Oh, we do see an R tracker come down here to apply a -6 to the board. That is quick cast because of the the Iga. The question is there enough here to... Is there something that Paul has to be able to either stop the stat neg or kill the Lorite in, before that resolves? He does have access to Darkness Moonchild, which I think is important. Something like Light Tracker could... Nope, he's just going to let it happen. So the Lorite is going to successfully get to kill the Rusty's Fox. But it does kind of play out Dalton's hand a little bit now that we don't have any cards face down. It does reset him for being able to do Contract if he has one. I don't know how many contracts Dalton was playing on here in this list. Keep in mind, Paul, I believe, is playing 1 or 2 maximum because we wanted to showcase kind of how the deck functions and that it's very fun to play and usable, even if you don't have as many contracts as you could. So the question is, does Paul have it there? He doesn't have access to Iga, though, which is the worst part because it doesn't have quick cast. Being able to give the contract quick cast through something like Iga is something very helpful. It can really spring some good advantage that your opponent just has to immediately deal with. Oh, it does look like we have contract here. It doesn't. We just didn't, unfortunately, have the way to give it quick cast to use at the end of the turn. But Rocket Dive coming in. Rocket Dive going to help us probably do forcing of banish 2 resonators here, I can imagine, and then go into contract would be kind of my thought, just to clear the threats off the board and also keep him away from being able to hit the Trishula, because we're very, very close to that. And we did see another Lorite come down here on the side of Dalton to say, look, you're not going to get to put any cards face down. That's actually pretty devastating for Pink Spider because Pink Spider doesn't have the ability to put cards face down. It has to be on the Hyde side. And so not having any cards to play there means that a big portion of Paul's deck is now kind of a big advantage that Paul's deck is now kind of caught away from him. Keep in mind, he does have 2 cards already face down, which is not too bad, but he's still at 3 maximum. And now Pink Spider's already flipped. So a second Rocket Dive, if he has one, isn't going to give him as much value. So really well played there by Dalton. Swinging in for what it seems to be 3 pumps, so 13. We are going to see Rusty at least get flipped to use his ability to destroy. We are going to see a Winds of Asgard coming in here. This is a very nice tech for the mirror, specifically, to be able to, again, it's a lot of targeted removal. I imagine we might see a Darkness Moonchild God's Art here just to get it out of the way. Oh, nope, we are going to see use of Flute and 1 to go ahead and do Whistling Summoning. Oh, this is very smart. So while the Odin's Winds of Asgard is still in the chase, we can use Whistling Summoning here to then put the Rusty, whose effect is currently being potentially negated by Barrier, into play. Rusty's going to then get to be able to shoot the R Tracker and steal it for Paul, which is actually pretty huge. does Dalton have a response here? Dalton's kind of been burning through cards, doesn't have anything else face down. Stuck with just what's in hand. I'm not sure entirely what is in hand. Does look like it's going to get to resolve, though. So Rusty's going to come in here, get to shoot the R tracker. R tracker then gets reanimated as part of Rusty's effect, and we do a -6/-6 to Dalton's board for the turn. Not a huge deal. It essentially just mitigates the entire pump from the Institute, but it does steal a body and now put a bunch of pressure on Paul's side. I mean, everything here on his side is getting at least, I think, +6. And so, you know, Pink Spider is a 14, Rusty's a 16. The other guys, our tracker is a 13, so like that, and plus even Flute herself is getting pumped, so like that's lethal. Now there's an angelic battle barrier here coming down before draw. I don't super like this with what's already being pressured. I mean, against ninjas, angelic battle barrier isn't super great based on what they have. Paul put a card face down, which he technically shouldn't be able to do, so if that's a card that flips, we're in trouble. He does have access to Darkness Moonchild God's Art, so like that's the way to just find the lethal line here. If he does make use of that card that's face down, keep in mind that like you can't. I think, yeah, Paul recognizes, oh wait, I can't put cards face down, I'm on Pink Spider, so that's good to see. Again, that's the whole, the risk of putting Pink Spider is you can get it low righted or ability canceled, and then you're just like, I don't get to put cards face down, and that's a problem. Which is a lot of the reasons why I think in the list from Seven Kings in the Land, their tier list, they're playing Setting the Stage of Providence mainboarded to be able to have those protections for those pieces. Rusty going in to try to directly attack the Lowrite feels a little weird here. Pink Spider going in and then hitting for a lot of damage. A grand total of 14, so getting a nice little drain for Paul there. R Tracker swinging in for another 13. Flute, I mean, like, if he had just swung with the Rusty, that would have been lethal, which feels weird why there was the block, especially because we had Darkness Moonchild God's Art to be able to shoot it out of the way. But we'll see if there's any kind of follow-up play here. Do see tapping of the Darkness Moonchild to remove his graveyard from the game, and then a pass. So the question is, yeah, Dalton seems like he did not draw into anything good there, so he's going to go ahead and concede, and we're going to go into game 2. So we're in game 2. Paul managed to take, with a well-timed Rusty, managed to take game 1, just eventually burning through Dalton's kind of control tools to the point where he was eventually able to stick, and Dalton just not having much spot removal, trying to stop stuff from ever hitting the board, but once it hit board, he didn't really have much ways to get it off the board, which is a little bit unfortunate. Let's see if he can turn it around for game 2. I do think, speaking of Angelic Battle Barrier, just in my mind, I think it's a good card. I just think that it is very easy to player through it, and so trying to rely on it too much, I think, is a little bit risky. We do see both players kind of go immediately right into X the Black Cat. It's a little bit risky of that to do that for Paul, to be honest, because of the fact that Dalton's on the coin and does have technically Wind Will available. So like a well-timed Lowrite could just be like, cool, well done, you burned your God's Art, which is very interesting. We do see a turn 1 stone into just the card that we hit was Flute, so let's just go ahead and essentially use X the Black Cat to ramp. I don't hate that, especially since the fact that we're going to be able to use Flute right off the cuff to be able to play a card face down if he needs to. Also, Dalton going in with that green Energize, going straight for the Trishula to also ramp. Both players saying, look, I need a bunch of will for this matchup, so let's take our first turn each and just ramp. Very, very interesting first turn strategy. I mean, for Paul, I mean, neither player had really any way to interact with that other than like Dalton, like I said, using the Lowrite on the God's Art. Paul having access to only White Will doesn't really have anything that he can do against Trishula other than like a Dispelling Stone to destroy the Trishula, but that doesn't help him in any way. I imagine we see a card get put down here before recovery. Taking up one of the 3 slots in the EX area for Paul. Yep, there it is. Then see a pass. I wouldn't be terribly surprised. We need Iga is the biggest piece here. So Paul's out a bit of an advantage in the fact that like we can just hard cast Iga and not try to cheat it, and still have the will from it plus flute to be able to play a card from face down, or put a card face down and play a card. A lot of cycling there. Just need to find the Iga first. Daltin deciding to put a card face down, and then we're back into his main phase. Let's see if there's some kind of follow-up, or if we're just going to do a lot more passing. Does look like we're going to see another pass. And there it is. Like I said, there's that hard cast of the Iga. There's no need to cheat it in. Let's have it be here forever. There's a lot of value that's gained off of it being on field, especially in the mirror. Having all your ninjas be quick cast when your opponent's doesn't is pretty great. So we'll have to see if there's some kind of cancel. I can't imagine we don't. Yeah, fair spell to get that stopped. We do have the Ninja Stone for Paul, which is very interesting, and we are going to put a card face down. Getting a Heaven's Rift. Putting a third card face down. It's pretty common cards that we're going to see are like Rusty's Fox, Whistling Summoning. Glowing Spider is going to probably stay in the hand until we get access to something like Iga, just because we want to be able to always cast it kind of on time. We are going to see a Garion try to cancel the Spider. We're going to see a Lorite try to cancel the activate ability of Garion. Is this fight over this Spider going to go much further? If Daltin had a Rusty here, I wouldn't hate the idea of trying to pop the Spider. That's a resolves. The problem is, like, we're just not going to be able to stop it from getting 3 cards unless we have another Lorite. And I feel like if we had another Lorite, we would have dropped it here to stop Paul's Lorite. So ultimately, this Spider is probably going to resolve and just draw 3 cards for Paul, which is really great. Oh, we are going to see a Rusty's Fox come in here to try to draw into something. Ultimately, another card goes face down. Is it relevant enough? Do we have any will to be able to interact? Does not look like it. And so we're going to lose the trade with the Garion. The Lorite is going to successfully protect the Glowing Spider. And we get to go into a draw 3 cards scenario. This feels very, very good for Paul to draw those 3. Just hand advantage is pretty king in this matchup. Not to mention the fact that Glowing Spider is a 10/10, so he's applying some good pressure as well. We are seeing a main phase rocket dive. Any way to stop it with just white will? I don't think so. Something like Don't Cheat would be very, very good here. If you haven't already seen, Don't Cheat's a card from AO3, I believe. Maybe AO2, that just said if a card was cast, you can play it for free if a card was cast without being played from a hand, and it just cancels target chance spell. So it's really good against Rocket Dive, because Rocket Dive is played from the EX area in order to be able to contract. So it's a very, very nice card to be able to punish Hyde decks alongside Lorite. Definitely a sideboardable choice. We are going to see Rocket Dive going to go ahead and force him to banish 2 dudes, and it is going to get contracted. Paul choosing to float some Light Will before the guys die. Makes a lot of sense. Pink Spider coming in here. We don't have access to green, so she's just going to get to draw a card and she'll be able to put max 2 cards down because he already has 2 zones, and he did the banish zone, not the expand. So we're down to 2 cards, and then we're going to draw 2 more cards. So Dalton's sitting on 4 spots to Paul's 3. Looks like we're going to see a cast of one of those cards potentially. We are going to see a Rusty get flipped face up off of a filter to produce black to go ahead and kill the spider and get that off the board and then pass. We are going to see a Dispelling Stone did get to either, was it probably sideboarded, I imagine, was to pop the Trishula, get that off the field, keep the spot removal dream alive, and get another card to cycle through. Very, very cool. Interestingly enough, I mean, the Dispelling Stone flips, pops the addition, shuffles back in, then draws a card. Or draws a card, then shuffles back in. So you know, can kind of recycle it forever, which is really nice, even out of the EX area, which is cool. We had a second flute in hand. This is one of the interesting things that I think that Paul's deck might have advantageous to Dalton is the fact that he does have Rain of Comets, or Group of Comets. 3, it does cost him 4. It's be very expensive, but it can't be canceled by Fairer Spell. And if Dalton's board gets wide enough, but then he can't find lethal, we just kill them all because there's no real +1/+1 token generation in the Ninja deck. So that'd be very, very helpful. Even if he gets to it's the same issue of if he gets to Trishula, what does he do? But if there's not a Trishula, which is already answered because of Dispelling Stone, then at least he does have that backup board destruction as needed. Do see another Rusty's Fox come in here, as well as a Lorite attempting to target the Rusty's Fox ability. Now, Dalton plays a Winds of Asgard here, but keep in mind that Winds of Asgard does not actually give barrier to the abilities, which is what Lorite is targeting. It's the ability of a Resonator, but the Resonator would have barrier, and Lorite would just be targeting the ability, not the Resonator, so the barrier doesn't help there. So, Paul being a bro and letting him take it back. Do we see any more action from Dalton, or are we going to sit on what we have? Whistling Summoning would be pretty good here, or it'd be okay. Keeping in mind that with Whistling Summoning, and there's that Lorite on the field, there is a world where we can use Paul's own Lorite against him. Ultimately, though, we are going to just swing in with the Hyde, and the Lorite's going to take the hit, and Dalton's going to get to gain 800 life. Do you see an Angelic Battle Barrier here? Which is what Dalton did last time. Because Paul has access to be able to put cards face down, flip things face up, it just doesn't feel like this Angelic Battle Barrier is going to do too much. We are going to see some cards get cast before it resolves, which I think is totally fine. Something like a Rusty would be really good here, but we don't have quick cast. Even Call Stone, even just recover Call Stone and have the resources, though, because he's on Spider, or because he's on Hyde, doesn't feel too bad. He'll be able to cast stuff, especially if he can get to an Ega. Being able to like flash in an Ega, even if it's for free on Dalton's turn, to have a turn of interaction where everything gets quick cast and you can put cards face down and recast them, and put cards face down and flip them face up and recast them, means that like having to go into Dalton's turn is kind of okay. It did look like I saw a black triad there in Paul's hand, which is not super great, unfortunately. If we can get to triple black, I mean, that's pretty good, but not being able to, there's actually a world where if we have Black Triad, that's actually really good right now, because we could pay 1, put it face down, pay 3 black, flip it face up without casting it, kill some, make him discard 2 cards, reanimate, kill one of the cones, flip it back. I think there is actually some pretty good value to be had there for a Black Triad in this specific situation. I wonder when that didn't get used. Or I might just be blind and Paul doesn't have Black Triad in hand at all. And at which point in time, I'm very silly. Especially with Dalton being tapped out, you have pretty much free reign to do what you want. Did see Dark Alice come in here and sacrifice one of the cones, as well as one of the fox, as well as one of the Dark Alice itself. And then we are going to see, this is really nice. I don't know if I would have done it quite yet. Maybe because Dalton's tapped out, it's like it would cost you, at this point in time, most likely cost you 3 will to go into contract. We'd see an R tracker using its put face down ability to give -6/-6, and then a Rusty's Fox get flipped up to deal 900 damage, which is enough to kill that pink spider. It might also be because of the fact that we didn't want Dalton to go into Winds of Asgard to be able to protect it, so that would make sense as well. Another Dark Alice coming down here during the main phase, drawing a card, discarding a card, drawing a card, sacrificing itself. I think Dalton accidentally had a stone shuffled into his main deck, so while they can't see what it does, put it in the bottom of the main deck. Paul gonna give it a quick shuffle just for good measure's sake. Another card goes face down. We are at a point where we can do that now since we're back to having Hyde. Imagine that Rusty's Fox gets probably cast here. We're going to cast the Rusty's Fox we just put face down thanks to Hyde. Really just means that like you're just paying 2 over 2 resources as opposed to 2 when you first cast him, which is totally fine for me. I mean, technically, Dalton didn't even need to put him face down. He could just cast him for 2 because he's with the same amount of will. The only advantage that would be to put him face down, then flip him face up, then cast him would be if Paul had something for him to shoot to not miss out on that damage from the Fox. Ultimately, nothing there at the current time, so we're just really just casting Rusty's Fox, which is still a great card. Swinging in for 5 with Rusty's Fox. Potentially considering casting his own Rusty's Fox. We're flipping up another Rusty's Fox. We do have that R tracker. Not going to help us too much here. We don't have quick cast. We need Ega first. So Paul's just going to choose to take the 5, go down to 35. Oh, no, we are going to see something happen. Using our tracker here. There must be an Ega on the field that I'm missing because of the camera angle, I imagine. R tracker here gets quick cast. We're going to then use the R tracker to pay for the quick cast of L tracker, and then use L tracker to quick cast in R tracker, trying to put a -14, a -12 on Dalton's board, as well as a +6/+6 on Paul's board. Let's see if Daltin has a response here. I'm not sure what the response would be outside of like a Lorite. Paul technically should have waited for the R tracker to resolve before casting the L tracker, because if Daltin has a fairer spell here, you can just stop it. We do have the Ega get flashed in on the side of Daltin. Gives us our quick cast. And then play, oh, Entangling Web. That's pretty good. So it is gonna, I mean, essentially we're wiping both sides of the board here. But the Entangling Web is going to get to kill all of those trackers and kind of reset stuff back to how it was. So really clearing the board. Pretty impressive tech card there. Do see a Fox and a Whistling Summoning come down from Paul. Whistling Summoning getting flipped to grab back the Lorite. Whistling Summoning not getting used, just getting flipped face up. So kind of revealing that trick up his sleeve. Putting another card face down and then just passing the turn. Going into Dalton's turn. This is what I meant when I said like both decks are excel in like just killing stuff, consistently keeping it off the board, and so they're like these guys are both sitting at like 6-7 stones, because no one's been able to stick anything that deals damage. Fox is gonna come in, I mean, Glowing Spider's gonna get to come in, draw some 4 cards, but like we know we have access to that Lorite in hand, so that's probably just gonna immediately stop it. And then like that Fox is like, oh, we're gonna be fighting over these Glowing Spiders. Another Glowing Spider coming in. This one's now a 12/12. Draws him 4 cards. Do we have a second Lorite? Do we have any way to be able to stop this second draw 4 cards? Paul looking at his 2 face down cards going, not much here. The beauty is if he does see his Rocket Dive, he'll be able to force the banish of those 2. Just getting to draw a bunch of cards here and kind of refill for Daltin, I imagine, just because of the resources here, especially, oh, now we got an Ega. I imagine it's going to turn very bad for Paul very quickly with these spiders. I mean, both being 10/10s, Paul's starting to run low on resources. Going to go ahead and get shot by the Rusty's Fox to get his Fox out of the way. And then Paul just passing the turn. Do we have another Whistling Summoning? Dispelling Stone again. Coming down here to pop the Ega. Using it as he can to go ahead and cast that Rusty's Fox. Might as well use it to make the will available before it gets shot. Hoping to draw into something here off this Dispelling Stone. Even Rusty would be really good here to kill one of the spiders, because he would then be able to, like, he'd get the enter effect of the spider and draw some cards. We just have a Rusty already face down, which is very good, and we do have access to Whistling Summoning, so I imagine that we might actually just see that happen. Now, the problem is with Whistling Summoning, using Whistling Summoning for Rusty at this point, though, is that it would get us down to 0 cards in the face down, so we'd have to, like, burn our cards. Rusty's gonna come down here. We can put that 1 card that we have in our hand back face down. Trying to kill the Fox. Do see a Lorite to try to kill the stop the Rusty. We don't have any kind of interaction with that. Just really, or maybe we do. Oh, wow. Yggdrasil's Grace, targeting the Rusty to flicker it out, and then it'll come back in, and then it'll get to kill something. We'll get to grab the... would be there, but Dalton said, no, spot removal. We have so much. I have my own Rusty. Before you get to flicker it, I will kill it. So yeah, ultimately, Dalton playing through a lot of really good threats there from Paul, and really just coming at the end of the sequence very on top. Top decks into a Ega. Does not get us much value there. We're sitting on, I think, the only card in hand right now is Ega, so it's probably just going to be a pass at that point. I mean, you might as well cast it. Foresee one, see what the card is. Probably can see a concession here short. I mean, no, I guess the life totals are high enough. If we have any way to cheat these Rusties into play, though, it's certainly going to look a lot worse for Paul. Oh, there is that Ega in play there. Yes, he was just hiding it behind his his nameplate. Got some good blocks. Not much else beyond that, though. So I imagine we're in for a bad time. He also does have access to, you know, the Darkness Moonchild God's Art, so we'll be able to shoot and kill or removal, get something out of the way that way. Not seeing, I mean, even at this point, the issue is a rocket dive still isn't going to help Paul very much, because you need to have cards in hand for rocket dive to be effective, and Dalton at this point is going to have enough dudes to be able to sacrifice like Lorite and Fox, just easily sacrifice those out of the way, to be able to keep his major threats on board, even if Paul does flip into a Rusty's Fox. Also, Paul's just like hardcast Garion, or Dalton's like hardcast Garion. I don't think you have a way to stop this. You don't have any cards in your face down area, so we're not going to see a Rusty. Let's just lock you out of 1-drops. Rough, real rough. Spider comes in here for 12, gets blocked by a Lorite, which is fine. We do have access to, again, Darkness Moonchild to try to pop the Garion, so that's not super great here. After blocks, but before damage, we're just going to see a Dante enters the Game of Gods, burning some life to draw 3 cards, go down to 33. Seeing what we might have there. Looking for a spot removal to get rid of the Lorite, potentially. Could see that. Ultimately, nope, didn't see into it, so it's just going to block. Magic Stone Research Institute comes down here. It's going to pump up the Garion and the Lorite and the Fox as big as we want. Yeah, rough. I mean, the way we survive, I don't think there's a way to survive this, even with the Darkness Moonchild God's Art. Yeah, we can kill it. But he has the Winds of Asgard in the face down to have protection. And so, yeah, Dalton played through that beautifully and takes game 2. Okay, we're going into game 3, and right off the bat, both of these guys are saying, no, let's just go. Before anybody can do anything, let's just start right off with the God's Arts of X the Black Cat. This has been interesting to me. I've been playing a little bit of Hyde, and I kind of have felt like it is the correct decision. There's also sometimes where I feel like maybe it isn't correct. I can see where it's helpful, especially going second, to try to, if you want to try to contract right away, especially if you have an Ega in hand. The strength of it certainly does feel pretty predicated on whether or not you start with an Ega to be able to make some moves, or at least be able to play the card a quick cast. If it's not, we're seeing a Callstone Pass, we're seeing a coin to put a card face down, and from Paul going into main phase. One thing to keep in mind, though, if you're playing Hyde, is that it is an activate ability, so you pay cost, pass priority. Your opponent has to say okay, and then you can put a card face down. Keep that in mind. So not that I could ever imagine someone going, let's Lorite you putting a card face down. That's just going to stay in your hand, but it is important to note. It also is one of the reasons why Shackles of Ice can be very good against Hyde, because with Shackles, you just don't have the ability from Hyde to be able to put a card face down. Keep that in mind as well as you're a Hyde player. We are going to see a Ega get flashed in here into a Spider, getting cast from hand, draw 2 cards. Dalton says I have no response to it. The Ega is just going to go straight to face down. We didn't use the will for anything, but that is okay. Mainly just wanted to make it so that we have access to a 10-10 spider, really putting the pressure on Paul, saying, look, took too long last time. Let's make you burn resources as fast as possible to try to keep me from killing you. Getting a little bit more aggressive with here. Also, a 10-10 spider survives the openings of the fox, because fox can deal max 9 damage out the gate, and so the 10-10 spider gets to survive that. Do see a Magic Stone Research Institute come down from Dalton. Not sure what that's going to really do. We do have access to the other stone, so if we do have a Rusty's Fox in there, you know, it can serve to be a nice blocker here, which is very, very nice. Getting our ninja stone here, which technically we can use to recover that spider. Keep that in mind. So we're getting for 10. Are we going to see a... Yep, we're going to see Rusty's Fox slash in to deal 600 damage to it, and then cast the Rusty's Fox to be able to block. So they will trade. With the 600 damage here, there is a world where if Paul has a Rusty's Fox face down, we can flip it, kill the Rusty's Fox, and then kind of get that 10 damage in. So I question whether or not Paul has a Rusty's Fox right now. We know that one of those cards is Iga. A Rusty itself could also do it. Dispelling Stone here to get rid of the Institute is pretty solid, so that it does turn into a trade and cycles into a card. Because the spider is now an 8/8 that's taken 6 damage, and so it'll trade with Rusty. Yeah, there we go. The spider also dies here, turns into a trade. Still don't know what that first card is for Paul. Do see a filter using X the Black Cat to turn into White Will, so we can play this flute off the Ninja Stone. Getting rid of that early game Institute is probably going to be pretty important for Paul here, just to not have to worry about that pressure. And Dalton did kind of spend a turn having to cast that here. And so now Paul is back on having will advantage, even going second because of the flute. That's probably just never going to die. Like, it's unless we see a rocket dive, that thing's just never going to die. Because I do not believe... Oh, no, we do know that Dalton is playing R-Tracker, so there is a way that it could get wiped off the board that way for sure. Gonna see Dalton's own glowing spider here to draw some extra cards. Gonna use flute during the end phase to put another card face down before the draw from the spider, which makes a lot of sense. There's a sequence here where if Dalton goes to try to put a card face down here, and we have a Rusty's Fox on the part of Paul, in response to him trying to put a card face down, we flip the Rusty's Fox face up. Yeah, there we go, to shoot it. This is interesting to me that Rusty's Fox has been there this whole time and we didn't re-reveal it to try to kill the other... No, I guess we just didn't have enough damage to be able to... We didn't have 3 cards face down to be able to try to kill the... No, we had the Dispelling Stone. We had 3. So we could have killed the Rusty, then popped the Dispelling Stone, which would have then killed the spider. We would have kept our spider. So that's a little bit of a missequencing there for sure from Paul, since we had that Rusty's here. We do see L-Tracker get put face down in response, though, to try to save the spider, which is fine. Paul doesn't technically lose any card advantage there, and the spider wasn't going to swing this turn anyway. Gonna flip up the other card, which is Whistling Summoning here, to go ahead and get you buy back the glowing spider. Dalton here sitting on just 1 stone. It is an Amadeus crystal, so it can be all 5 colors. Probably gonna see that Rusty's Fox get cast here, I imagine. Oh no, we're just gonna see the glowing spider get cast first, just to try to draw 3 cards. Do we see the low right from Dalton, or do we get to see Paul successfully draw some extra cards here? Does let it happen. Do we see any other follow-up from Paul on this turn, or are we going to sit and play patience? I do think there's something to be said about, especially because Rusty's Fox has quick cast, there's not really a point to cast him proactively, unless he has swiftness, which we have no way to give him swiftness in either of these lists. Discarding to hand size at the end of turn, we see a Ninja Whistle and a Lorite get discarded. Very interesting. Also did not expect to see Ninja Whistling come into play. We see a Dark Alice at the end of turn for Dalton. Or the end of Paul's turn, going into Dalton's turn. Try to draw some more cards. Dark Alice in Dalton's list, serving very much to just get quick cast in and sacrifice to her own ability. Not really needing the 5 colors or the protection from the graveyard, really. The deck doesn't do a lot of reanimate from the graveyard. I mean, it does Whistling Summoning to buy back, but that's kind of rare. It's not very common. You kind of want Whistling Summoning to stay in your hand most of the time, to be honest, because it's taking up a slot. Like, Whistling Summoning when you have 5 slots is fine. Whistling Summoning when you have 3 kind of feels a little bad. We do see a main phase Rocket Dive. We know that last face down card for Paul is Iga, so that's not going to help us much here. It is going to force a banish of the 2 Resonators, and we're going to see the Pink Spider come out here. Do we have a Lorite on the part of Paul to do what he did, what was done to him during game 1? Yes, we do see the Lorite here. Dalton says we're going to fight over it. Very clearly we see a Garion to try to stop the Lorite. Second Lorite coming down from Paul saying no thank you. Have a 3rd card to be able to fight over this Pink Spider. Second Garion comes down from Dalton to stop both of these Lorites. Yeah, I mean, it burns a lot of cards. I mean, this is pretty advantageous for Paul, making him burn these. Like, he's going to get the extra trigger to put a card face down. Wow, Dalton's still having so many cards in his hand, even after burning the double Garion there. So it certainly worked out in his favor, and we get to swing in with the Pink Spider, the Spider for 1,200, taking Paul down to 28. We are going to use that floating white here to do Rusty's Fox, try to draw into something else. And then draw for turn. I'll go in and just say, let's swing in for 5. See what happens. See if we can maybe bait you into trying to do something. It's exactly what happened. Pink Spider goes to block. Rusty's going to get to flip here to try to kill it. We do have Whistling Summoning here for that Rusty. That's really, really good. With Dalton being fully tapped out, this is one of the things, again, why I said, like, I think Pink Whistling Summoning is better in the hand than in the EX zone, because, like, think about it this way. He gets to cast the Whistling, he could cast the Rusty here off of Whistling Summoning, but that takes 2 of his cards out of his EX area, which means even if he gets the Spider, it only gets to draw him 1 card. It just doesn't provide as much value as you want, at least with some of the, like, immediate threats. So, like, now is the safest time for him to cast it, but he just gets the least amount of value off of it, which is just really unfortunate. Does look like we're going into Dalton's turn before draw. Do you see the Whistling Summoning cast to get the Rusty, to kill the Spider, to draw a card? Ninja Master Rusty, rocking it out. Now, there is some advantage if Paul is playing Rusty's Claw technique, that now we have a Rusty, right? So we have the ability to mastery that. The problem is our 1 face down card is Iga, and it has no flip up ability, so there's no advantage that is generated by the secondary part of Rusty's Claw technique to flip stuff face down. And Paul's going into a very heavy field here. So we see a Rusty get cast from Dalton. That in my mind is going to target Paul's Rusty to like then get to steal something else. We do see a Lorite come down to stop it. Not really much outside of another Lorite or a Garian, which we've already burned through a couple. That's going to be able to stop that from just keeping our Rusty safe. And so Dalton's just in a position of like, well, I guess we both have Rusties. We do know, however, that Dalton is playing Claw Technique. We haven't seen it from Paul. We have seen it in Dalton's list. So we'll see if that comes into play for sure. Going into this here, having so many cards face down, I don't know if there's a reason to try to continue to extend. Yeah, I don't like these angelic battle barriers that Dalton has been doing proactively. It just feels like it's tapping him out and like, cool, your opponent's not going to get to cast anything, but he doesn't have to, because now he can just kind of save his will and you've tapped out as well. So like he can just kind of comfortably swing in. Like Paul could just as easily call stone, pay 2 will to put 2 cards face down, and just swing with the spider and say like block with the Rusty or do nothing. He also like block with the Rusty and take the 10 damage anyway. Especially because he still has Darkness Moonchild Gods Art. Like that's the biggest concern here, is that like Paul's just gonna get to start bashing in. Swings in for 6. He's gonna take it. Chooses not to put cards face down in response to no block, which I think is a little bit of a missed damage opportunity. Rusty's probably going to swing in here, putting a card face down because that's not casting a card. Wow, in response to no block. So this truly is in response to no blocks. We're going to see a double R tracker ability to try to kill the Rusty. In response to that, we're going to see a Rusty's Claw Technique, as we saw before, to try to kill the spider, maybe? Yes, it is to kill the spider to stop the damage from being taken. Doesn't have any cards to flip face up, but now we get to go swing in for the 10 damage there with the Rusty. Then we still have will to cast those cards. Not having Ega is the worst part about this situation, because those R trackers just aren't going to do much. Like, we have complete knowledge of what the EX zone is here. It's double Ega and an R tracker. And we do see the Ninja Stone finally coming into play to recover the Rusty. So even if there is some kind of swiftness here, we're protected. Paul definitely tried to threaten the lethal next turn here. We'll see how this plays out. If Paul can get to that Ega, he's certainly in really fine shape, especially since he has those double R trackers. I imagine there's a world where we see potentially an R into L into R like we saw last time. Trishula coming down here to try to ramp him a stone. Says that's fine, doesn't really do much to help him here. And again, now that we know that there's double R tracker, even if we got to 3,000, we probably wouldn't stay there very long. Putting a bunch of cards face down. I mean, all of those could be very good ways to be able to keep ourselves alive with things like Fox, our own R trackers. We do have a Rusty's Fox here to be able to do 1,200 damage to that Rusty. It just killed that right out the gate. We're just going to have to take that damage. It's just going to get killed. It's now going to be able to flash in and be able to... Oh, we have a refill of the hand with Glowing Spider as well. Just drawing into so many cards here for Dalton. So every single time Paul kind of gets him low, Dalton's certainly been resolving more Glowing Spiders or more card advantage than Paul has for sure. And then we do see a flash in of the Ega. What else is going to happen? We're going to use that Ega to cast the Rusty's Fox. Draw and put another card face down. So Daltin having a nice little defensive wall here. The problem is next turn, we're probably going to see double R tracker just to clear whatever he puts into play. And if, yeah, double spider is really good here. We're going to draw another 4 cards. Really just have a good hand advantage. The problem is we're only going to have 1 will. That's the biggest piece here. And don't forget, Paul still has access to Darkness Moonchild, God's Art. So the 1 will is going to be relevant. And if Daltin taps out here, that's the worst part. If he doesn't have a Fox and he taps out here, he's in for potential problems, especially if Paul does have access to, like, you know, double R tracker in hand, with like double L tracker on field to just kind of like cast, apply -12 and +12 to both sides, and then Paul can swing in with Lorite and Fox for lethal. That's the biggest trick here, and clearly I think what Paul is trying to do to push through what Daltin has. The Ega just goes away, has to get banished. It doesn't have a slot in the EX zone to be able to go face down. And so it goes into Paul having an Ega here. Does have his own glowing spider here at the end of turn. This is pretty good, because the spider is a ninja. Gets to draw into some more hand advantage here. So Paul's certainly in a position to be able to potentially close out this game based on what we draw into. Second glowing spider at the end of Daltin's turn says, look, those are some cute spiders. I also have them. Paul does have to be pretty careful here. If he does, the key point here is Paul should not produce any will off of this Eka, because if he does and Daltin has that entangling web, then it's free. And so just having the quick cast is kind of the advantage here for Paul. Yeah. Even a single L tracker at this point is lethal. With the +6/+6. Both players just having a massive hand of cards after Daltin discards for hand size. Just regularly casting the R tracker is enough for lethal. You know, these 2 R trackers is enough for lethal. Although casting them will make the spider smaller, so we do need at least 1 L tracker to be able to pump them up. And again, don't make any extra, like, just use stones for will at this point to survive entangling web. Although at this point with the spiders already being alive, it's not a super huge thing because entangling web won't kill them. And the R and L tracker can just die, and that's okay. They've already done their enter effect. So yeah, we did produce extra will here. R tracker number 1 coming down here to apply an egg 6 to the board, which means that everything stays alive, but things die pretty quickly. Probably going to see an L tracker come down off of this R tracker if there's anything to be put into play from last games. Doesn't look like these face down cards for Daltin are going to do much here. There's the R tracker, or the L tracker, coming in here to pump up his side of the board +6/+6. This means that the spiders will both be 12/12s. Because they'll have +6/+6 and only 1 card in the EX area, so there'll be 12s each. That's 24. And then also Fox will be another 11, so that's 36. And then Lorite will be another 7, so that's 43. So if Daltin doesn't have a way to kill this stuff off board, this is just lethal. Like, everything's going to die here. It's -12. And then Paul gets to try to swing in here. Without casting Contract a single time, he was able to play it out, which would be impressive. It's one of the reasons why I know that Daltin was playing... and he just puts 2 cards face down to pump up the spiders even more. Daltin was playing Winds of Asgard, which I think is a pretty cool tech. Another interesting idea that you could play is also the Awakening of Zero, because it provides Eternal. And so, you know, that's a way to say, like, even if you do the stat and egg stuff, my stuff's still on board so I can block, which is pretty helpful. Because most of the time, most of the stuff from Daltin is also going to be spot removal for lethal. So, swinging in here... Trying to play through any kind of blockers. We do have access to Lumia to heal back up, so that we don't die, which is nice. I don't No, it doesn't protect him, though, even with the life gain, because he has to heal after the first swing. The second swing will be a lot of damage. The third's... the Lumia is immediately dead. Like, it's not there to be able to block because of the -12 on the board. So... and even if it could block, Darkness Moonchild will just kill it and shoot it out of the way. So even despite the heal, the lethal here is just there. So that is the match. Thank you guys so much for playing. We'll have deck profiles up for both of these lists later this week. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.